All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to take a look at political socialization, the factors that can influence a person's public opinion. And people in different groups tend to share certain opinions, thus creating a group identification. Now, the number one influence on one's political socialization is one's family. There's a very strong correlation between the views of your family and the political party that you support. People often will believe similarly to their parents. Gender also tends to influence your politics. So, for example, men tend to support the military more than women. Women consider sexual harassment a more serious problem than men. Since the 60s, women have voted more towards the Democrats than men, who tend to vote more towards the Republicans. This is not a significant indicator as marriage. If you're married, you're more likely to be a Republican, and unmarried, you're more likely to be a Democrat. Religion also tends to influence one's politics. Some examples. Protestants are generally more conservative on economic matters than Catholics or Jewish people. Jewish people tend to be more liberal on economic and social issues. So when I talk about social issues, I'm talking about same-sex marriage, abortion, etc., than Catholics or Protestants. And Catholics tend to be more liberal on economic issues than they are on social issues. Now, education definitely can influence your politics. Those who are college educated tend to be more liberal. This is not always the case. There are college educated conservatives. Social class can influence one's politics as well. Blue-collar types, laborers, typically will vote Democrat. White-collar business people will typically vote Republican. Now remember, all of the classifications I'm making here are generalities. You can always find exceptions to this, to these tendencies. Now, over time, this relationship is becoming a little less clear. Now let's look at race and ethnicity. African Americans generally will vote Democratic. Hispanic Americans also tend to affiliate with the Democrats, but not as consistently as African Americans. Asian Americans are typically less liberal than Hispanics or African Americans, but still lean Democrat. And whites are more divided, and they tend to fluctuate by election, but are generally a little more likely to vote for Republicans. Now, let's look at geographic region. The coasts are generally more liberal. The Midwest tends to be more conservative. If you live in an urban area, or people that live in urban areas tend to be more liberal. The South historically has been dominated by Democrats. Today it tends to be dominated by Republicans, primarily social conservatives. and white Southerners typically are less liberal and more likely to support Republicans. Now we're going to take a look at political ideology. So this is a coherent set of values and beliefs about public policy. This changes over time for well, pretty much everybody. Liberals and conservatives mean different things during different time periods. Now we're going to take a look at ideology in a famous study on ideology. And this study was called The American Voter. It was a 1950 study, and it talked about 4 different types of voters. You had ideologues, that are about 12% of people will connect their opinions to party lines. They'll generally vote with the party. The American Voter also found that you have what are called group benefits voters. 42% of people will connect their opinion to their group if they're part of a labor union, a certain race, a certain class. They'll vote with their group. Then you had Nature of the Times voters, and this is 24% of the people linked good or bad times to the party in control and voted the opposite. This is usually based on economics. And then 22% of all people in this American Voter survey couldn't give a reason for why they voted for who they did. So that American Voter survey kind of showed the ideology of different Americans and why they voted for who they voted for. All right, let's move on to the assessment. Number 1, we're going to describe the factors that affect political socialization. What factor do you think most affects your political views? And then for number 2, we're going to describe the groups that tend to vote the most, and why do you think these groups of people tend to vote? All right, great. If you need more time, you can go ahead and pause. We're going to go to the summary. In a paragraph, describe what we've learned today. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.